Okay, let me know when we can start.
It's gonna be a fun video read. I think I'm actually still looking at it, so but it's cooler than downstairs, so yeah.
Okay. All right. Welcome everybody to our planning committee meeting for August 11th, 2022. I am going to call this meeting to order at 9:27 a.m. I am confirming that we have quorum. We are missing Councillor Hayes. She sent her regrets, and we have everybody else here. We also have the CAO, the clerk, our Director of Development Services and Environmental Sustainability, and other members of our staff. And I'd like to welcome Alex, who is our new planning assistant in training this morning. So welcome, Alex, to what's become our little family with COVID here. So, okay. Input was received at planning at muskokalakes.ca. Anything that came in was distributed to our councillors. And today's meeting is being live streamed and recorded on the Township of Muskoka Lakes website and YouTube channel. By participating in the open meeting today, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded and posted online. Okay, I am going to ask if there is any declaration of pecuniary interest at this point. Councillor Jaglowitz. You need to unmute, Frank.
I pushed the button, but it didn't work. Anyway, thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm declaring a conflict on item 6A, the Resort Village of, and that as I have done before. I have a financial interest in one of the projects there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anyone else? All right, well, then we will get right to our public meetings. And the first one, Ms. Walker, I believe you are up. And this is Arney. Welcome, Ms. Walker.
Thank you, Chair Bridgman, and good morning again, everyone. The first applications to be heard are severance applications B/25/22ML and zoning bylaw amendment application, bylaw 2022-91 in the name of Arney. The subject property is known municipally as 1262 Moon River Road. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted consent sketch and zoning sketches starting on page 23 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is summarized as follows. A severance application has been submitted to create one new lot. The retained lot is currently vacant and it is intended to be developed with a dwelling in the future. A zoning bylaw amendment application has also been submitted to rezone the retained lot from Rural Area 3 RU1 to Rural Area 2 RU2. Notice of this public meeting under the Planning Act was circulated 22 days in advance and 7 submissions have been received to date. Comments have been received from Nick Snyder, the Township's Chief Building Official, Tim Sopko, the Township's Public Works Technician, Curtis Savret, Planner for the District of Muskoka, Cheryl Mortimer and Stephen Dursley, and area property owners, Hydro One, and the Trillium Lakelands District School Board. These submissions were circulated to committee prior to today's meeting, but I'm happy to read any submission in full. A request to be notified was also submitted by Sandra Ford, an area property owner. I have prepared a detailed planning report for committee's consideration. If committee is considering recommending approval of severance application B/25/22ML, staff recommend the following conditions. That a registral description of the severed lot and any required rights of ways be submitted to the Secretary Treasurer along with the registered copy of the reference plan. That a cash in lieu of parkland be dedicated to the township in the amount of 5% of the assessed value of the newly created lot or the entire lands, whichever is less. That confirmation be received that the township is satisfied that the severed and retained lots are satisfactory for on-site sewage disposal and that any problems identified with the existing sewage system be corrected to the satisfaction of the township. That confirmation be received that an entrance permit is available from the Township's Public Works Department for an entrance permit to the retained lot. That a satisfactory noise impact study be completed to assess the impact and ensure compatibility with the Canadian Pacific Railway corridor on the future development of the retained lot, and that any recommendations be implemented to the satisfaction of the township and the Canadian Pacific Railway. And that a zoning bylaw amendment be approved to rezone the property to, from rural RU2. One more time. That the zoning bylaw amendment be approved to rezone the property to rural RU2 and environmental protection EP1. If committee is considering recommending approval of zoning bylaw amendment ZBA 5522, bylaw 2022-91, staff recommend the following minor amendments. First, that the severed lot be rezoned from RU1 to RU2. And second, that the wetland on the retained and severed lots be rezoned from rural RU1 to environmental protection EP1. I have no further comments, but I'm happy to assist committee with any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I have written down here that the agent is the Mr. Jackson. I don't know that I see him here on the list. Okay, can we bring him?
Yeah.
Is he? Great. We bring him and the owner in, please, Mr. Arney.
The owner's not.
Oh, he's not here? Okay.
Good morning. Good morning, Madam Chair.
Well, good morning, Mr. Jackson. Welcome.
Thank you. 1 Mall Drive, Perry Sound, P2A 3B9. Just here to answer any questions. I think Caitlin did a wonderful job explaining it. We're familiar with the report and the conditions. And unless there's questions that perhaps myself or Mr. Foley, who is hoping to acquire the property, can answer, we're pleased with the recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I see Mr. Foley has his hand up, so perhaps we could bring him in. So Mr. Foley, would you, I'm now going to ask who would like to speak on behalf of the application. I'm assuming if you'd like to acquire this property, you would be on site for this. So would you like to say anything?
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, Chad and Mr. Arney's here too.
Okay.
Yeah, all we really got to say is, we went through everything. Everything looks good. We're on board with all the recommendations. So if, we're down to go for everything you guys have recommended, and if that's good, then we're good with that too.
Oh, terrific. Could I just get your address for our records, please?
My address?
Yes, please.
1100 Moon River Road, River Street, sorry.
River Street? Okay.
Yeah.
That's Bala.
Bala, yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. All right. So Alex, do we see anybody who would like to speak against this application? Nobody. Okay, terrific. Well, then I'm going to turn it over to committee. Committee, any questions? Concerns? Thoughts? All right. I'm going to read the motion then. Moved by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Councillor Mazan. Be it resolved that Planning Committee recommends to Township Council the consent application B/25/22/ML Arney roll number 6-11-064 be approved, subject to the following conditions: that a registerable description of the severed lot and any required rights of way be submitted to the Secretary Treasurer along with a registered copy of the reference plan. The cash in lieu of parkland be dedicated to the township in the amount of 5% of the assessed value of the newly created lot or the entire lands, whichever is less. The confirmation be received that the township is satisfied that the severed and retained lots are satisfactory for on-site sewage disposal, and that any problems identified with an existing sewage system be corrected to the satisfaction of the township. The confirmation be received that an entrance permit is available from the township's Public Works Department for an entrance to the retained lot. That a satisfactory noise impact study be completed to assess the impact and ensure compatibility of the Canadian Pacific Railway corridor on the future development of the retained lot, and that any recommendations be implemented to the satisfaction of the township. Can we mute the Foley's, please? Thank you. Where was I? Satisfaction of the township and Canadian Pacific Railway, and that a zoning bylaw amendment be approved to rezone the property to rural RU2 and environmental protection EP1. Any comments, committee? All in favor? I think that's unanimous. I'm not sure about Councillor Nishikawa. I didn't see your hand up. Any opposed? Sorry, Councillor Nishikawa, I just didn't see your hand. Okay, carried. All right. Moved by Councillor Kelly, seconded by Councillor Jaglowitz. Be it resolved that Planning Committee recommends to Township Council that zoning bylaw amendment ZBA-55/22, Arney roll number 6-11-064 be approved, subject to the following minor amendments. That the severed lot be rezoned from rural RU1 to rural RU2, and that the wetland on the retained and severed lots be rezoned from rural RU1 to environmental protection EP1. Any comments? All in favor? That is unanimous, Madam Clerk. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. And we will move along then to, and I believe you're up again, Ms. Walker. And this would be Hunter and Major. Please take it away.
Thank you very much, Chair Bridgman. The next application to be heard is zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 11/22 bylaw 2022-52 in the name of Hunter and Major. The subject property is known municipally as 1 Norman Island Unit M59. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan starting on page 64 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is summarized as follows. The subject land contains a dwelling, 2 land-based sleeping cabins, a shed, a treehouse, a wood platform, an overwater gazebo, a 2-story boathouse containing a sleeping cabin, 2 boat ports, and associated docks. The applicants are proposing to 1, demolish the existing boathouses and associated docks and construct a new dock in a 2-story boathouse containing an upper-level sleeping cabin. 2, recognize as-built additions to the dwelling. 3, recognize as-built additions to sleeping cabin number 1. 4, recognize an as-built sun deck addition. 5, recognize an as-built stairs on the property. Recognize and relocate an as-built shed. They are also proposing to demolish the existing treehouse and platform. And it's noted by staff that based on staff site visit, the as-built sun decks off the north side of the existing veranda don't exist, and therefore the related exemptions are not required. A number of exemptions are required to address the above proposal and have been outlined and detailed in the staff report on pages 33 to 35 of the agenda package. I'm happy to provide a further explanation of any of these exemptions at the request of committee. Notice of this public meeting under the Planning Act was circulated 20 days in advance, and 11 submissions have been received to date. Comments have been received from Nick Snyder, the Township's Chief Building Official, Tim Sopko, the Township's Public Works Technician, Curtis Savret, Planner for the District of Muskoka, and the Trillium Lakelands District School Board. Letters have also been submitted by Jeff Brzezinnik, area property owner, Gary Kay, area property owner, Russell Emerson, area property owner, Adam and Kim Nesbitt, area property owners, John and Shelby Sayre, area property owners, Stefan Sprague, area property owner, and Chris Vandergriff, area property owner. These submissions were all circulated to committee prior to today's meeting. I've prepared a detailed planning report for committee's consideration. If committee is considering recommending approval of zoning bylaw amendment ZBA 11/22 bylaw 2022-52, staff recommend the following. That the proposed development be made subject to site plan control to retain the existing vegetation and implement plantings. That the as-built screened porch forming part of sleeping cabin number 1 be converted to a porch or a veranda prior to the third reading by planning a third reading of bylaw 2022/52. That the lot area of the subject property be confirmed prior to third reading of bylaw 2022-52, excluding any lands created by filling carried out subsequent to October 24th, 1980, along with the confirmation that the lot coverage will not exceed 11%. and that minor amendments to bylaw 2022-52 be approved prior to third reading to remove exemptions related to sun deck additions off the north side of the dwelling/veranda, to reduce the floor area of sleeping cabin number 1, and to implement any other necessary technical updates, including revising Schedule 2. I have no further comments, but I'm happy to assist committee with any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we'll be bringing in Mr. Donnell. I hope I've said that properly, as the agent and the owners. I believe they're both here. Mr. Hunter and Ms. Major.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Welcome. I don't see. Oh, there you are, Mr. Donnell, and I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing that properly.
Yep,
So
that's good.
you decide which order the three of you would like to speak in, so I'll turn it over to you.
Well, perhaps I'll go first, and then Jonathan may want to make some additional comments. As mentioned, my name is Darcy Donnell. I'm with Darcy Donnell Architect and a consultant for Jonathan Hunter and Anita Major. My address is 55 Lavinia Avenue, Toronto, Ontario. I've had the opportunity to review the staff's report on the application and thank them for forwarding it to us. And generally, we're pleased with the comments and agree with them that are contained within the staff report. I'd like to just go over a few points on that. As mentioned, there's numerous buildings on the property, of which the majority of them are old buildings, built prior, well prior to the existing bylaws. In fact, the cottage itself dates back to the late 1800s. The proposal is for construction of a new dock and a boathouse of 1,619 square feet. The new dock with the shoreline width is approximately 66 feet wide, and it will replace the existing boats and dock house, which are currently 106 feet 8 inches. So that's a reduction of 40 feet of shoreline width. The boathouse, the proposed boathouse, is in keeping with Hunter Major's beautifully restored century-old cottage and the surrounding environment, and was detailed to harmonize with the unique aspects of classic Muskoka architecture. Significant attention has been incorporated in adding the historical characteristics of the cottage and Muskoka to the design of the proposed boathouse. Like boathouses, older boathouses in the area, the structure hugs the shoreline and extends only 35 feet into the lake, and its dark green siding that matches the existing cottage causes it to blend in with the thick treed shoreline behind it. The existing boathouse extends into the channel between Delmar and Norman Islands and presents a bit of a navigational risk, whereas the proposed new boathouse is tucked around the corner from the channel in a much less obvious position. The planner mentioned the various alterations that would be included with this, which would be removal of the 100 square foot treehouse, a platform, and we would remove the screen porch walls that form part of sleeping cabin 1, which would change it from a screen porch to a veranda. The existing storage shed would be relocated above the floodplain line. Although there are more structures on the island than the current bylaw allows, and the overall coverage exceeds the permitted 10%, because the buildings are well below the maximum habitable floor area and below the maximum height permitted, the overall massing of the built form is very low. For example, the height of the main cottage is 26 feet 4 inches, whereas the maximum height permitted is 35 feet. the total habitable floor area on the property, including the boathouse and all the sleeping cabins, is 4,564 square feet. In contrast, if you contrast this to, say, a single dwelling was built on the island with a two-story boathouse, it could have a total habitable floor area of 7,500 square feet, would be 35 feet tall, which would add a lot of second-story mass to the overall impact or the look of the built form on the island. One final point. In 1934, we have a survey, and that Norman Island was originally 2 islands. And over the years, previous owners filled in between the islands to form the single island that we have now. They also protected these low-lying areas with stone retaining walls, which over the years would get washed away, and then they would be repaired. The stone patio mentioned was there for many years, but was fairly recently washed away. And you can actually see in the second photo of the aerial photographs of the island on the planning report that you can see the washed away portion of the patio there. Part of it is rubble, and it is actually underwater. When this happened, the owners had the wall repaired, and in its rebuilding, the patio was made slightly larger. However, the area of the island without the stone patio would make the coverage 10.98%. So it is below the 11% that we are asking for. We feel that this project conforms to the official plan because it is in character with the existing development of the area, as well as preserving historical heritage. The property is well treed, and the altered sleeping cabin and shed is thoroughly buffered from the lake. The boathouse has been specifically designed to maintain the historical heritage of the property and to blend in with its surroundings, and that the built form will not dominate. So to summarize, my client's priority is to construct a new boathouse, and it is my opinion that the proposed boathouse conforms with the official plan and presents good planning. In conclusion, we would request the committee approve circulation of the bylaw and permit the proposed new boathouse. Thanks very much, and I'd be glad to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Hunter, if you would like to say a few words, just give us your address first, please.
Yes, it's Jonathan Hunter. I don't know if my wife might want to say a few words too, but it's 24 Blythe Hill Road, Toronto, Ontario, Mary 4 Nancy 3 Larry 4. And so I would firstly thank you very much for hearing us today. We obviously really appreciate this. Just for context, we've owned this property since 2001. We've actually been in Muskoka since 1990. My wife and I bought our first cottage in Torrance before we were married, before we had any kids. It was our absolute pleasure and desire to be in Muskoka from the very beginning of meeting each other, and we have a shared love of Muskoka. In terms of this property and the ask that's with you, I would ask you just to consider the significant amount of time, effort, and frankly money, but that's less important, that we have put into this project to maintain the historic integrity. We are fortunate to have service, if you will, by the 4th generation of the Kay family. David Kay is helping us with the property, and David's great-great-grandfather was involved in the original construction of the property. Every element of our progression since we bought this place in 2001 has been to maintain the historic integrity. Everything from the windows and understanding, I think actually in the living room of this property, we actually have the original deed from 1863. And we have gone to painstaking and actually, frankly, very enjoyable to keep the integrity. We recognize that the multiple nature of the buildings is such that it doesn't necessarily conform today, but we've maintained the historic relevance for the purposes that be. Many people who walk around or drive around Muskoka will know this is a bit of a landmark property, and we've really tried at great length to maintain that integrity. Darcy's been incredibly helpful in helping us direct that process throughout the entire sort of 21 years that we've been involved. As it relates to the actual boathouse itself, all of our kids have been born there. All of our kids have actually been christened out of that cottage, and we remember when the kids were young and they were swimming off the dock, and we never liked it because they would actually be in the channel between Delmar and our island. And so the idea of pushing this east creates not only are we giving back dock space, but we're actually, I think, creating a more safe environment while at the same time maintaining the historic integrity of the property. Chair Bridgman, that's what I would have to say. Happy to answer any questions as it relates to the property or what's transpired over the last few years.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that's pretty neat. You've got the original deed actually from way back then. Ms. Major, would you like to say anything?
Sure. I mean, the only thing I would comment on is, I mean, it's been a fun project. I would say that we have the windows in the boathouse currently are original windows from the 1901. So, I mean, we're trying to hope to preserve those as well. The only thing I would add is there was in terms of that shed that's being moved, there was a shed that was behind the second cabin. Darcy will recall this, that we actually took down because you can see it very clearly from the water, and we tried to discreetly move it to the back. So anyway, that's why it is where it is, but we're happy to move it wherever you're suggesting.
Okay, thank you. All right. So Alex, do we see anybody else who would like to speak on behalf of this? Anyone opposed? I think so. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to committee then, and Mayor Harding.
Thank you very much, Chair Bridgman. To Jonathan, Nita, thank you very much for bringing this forward. Provide a comment, then one question. This is truly what I would call history of Muskoka that I would hate to lose. This is a small development relative to the traditional Millionaires Row in Beaumaris with overlock coverage, massive buildings, multiple floors. I've driven by this island several times, never knew that we had the existing sleeping cabin in the middle of the island. You can't see it in any way, shape, or form. From a boathouse perspective, absolutely. I believe this is a significant improvement to this property and in full support of that. The only question I have of planning staff, we're requiring on sleeping cabin number 1, the screens on the porch to be removed. And I wonder what the net benefit of removing that is actually going to do for us. We're not changing built form. We're not changing roof structures. We're not changing anything relative. My gut feeling would be if the hunters wanted a screen porch or didn't want a screened-in porch in the past, they would have removed it themselves. I'm not sure what the net benefit is to the overall product and the overall island by having those removed. So maybe planning staff can help me understand what the difference is, because I would just leave the screened-in porch. Why create work for anybody at the end of the day when there's no, in my opinion, net benefit?
Mr. Sharp.
Good morning, Chair Bridgman. Good morning, members of Planning Committee, and thank you for your question, Mayor Harding. Thank you, Mr. Donnell. I would like to thank Mr. Donnell, and in particular, you've been quite patient as we've worked through this process. So thank you for that. But to get to Mayor Harding's question, I think screen rooms are not excluded from floor area for the purposes of calculating it. And therefore, given quite tight restrictions around increases in floor area as they relate to sleeping cabins, staff have recommended that that screened room or screened porch, if you want to call it that, be converted so that it's a veranda or a porch as it's defined in the bylaw, which would be, an unenclosed structure with a roof. I understand that, I'm sure some of you may be sort of wondering, okay, what is the difference? What are we going to gain from this? And certainly, council or planning committee can make that decision. But I think, as with some certain considerations related to sleeping cabin floor area, I'm sure there's lots of folks out there that would love to have a screened room off their sleeping cabin, but that's not permitted because in a lot of cases it would exceed the 650 square foot requirement. So staff's recommendation is partly related to concerns related to precedent. So hopefully that provides a little bit of insight into where we're coming at this from. Thank you.
Thank you. Follow up, Mayor Harding.
Yeah, so thank you, Supplementary. The I guess sleeping cabin number 1, are we actually, it looks like we're adding 24 square feet at the back, but we're removing 333 square feet. I'm not sure necessarily how those equate. I totally get that if I had a 650 square foot sleeping cabin and I wanted to add 333 square feet, I wouldn't allow it to be closed in. I'm just really trying to understand 24 square feet as a change, and I'm just not sure that's precedent setting as much. That would be my specific comment, but I think Mr. Sharp wants to comment.
Mr. Sharp, did you want to comment on that?
Sure. Just to clarify, I think it's just the conversion of the screen porch component that's, roughly in the ballpark of, I don't have the site plan in front of me, but 344 square feet. I think we're inclined to, we're not recommending that the 24 square foot portion be removed or converted. I think we're okay with that remaining. I think our recommendation is to convert the screened room only to a veranda or a porch. So that hopefully that helps clarify. Happy to provide any more insight. Thank you.
Okay, and I believe that we have the owners on side with that. So, all right, any more comments? Okay. Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, and I'm in support of this application. I just had a question and just out of the box thinking, and could be totally off base asking this of Mr. Sharp, but it's a screened in porch right now. And I know in our old family cottage back in the 60s, we had a screened in porch, but we took the screens off in wintertime because they weren't permanent. They were just for bug season. Would that be violating the bylaw if they had removable screens that were taken off?
Mr. Sharp, boy, that could be quite a precedent. But anyway, Mr. Sharp.
Yeah, yes.
Thank you, Chair Bridgman. Yes, of course, some of you may be wondering, okay, if I just remove the screens, does that make it a porch? But I think we've been careful in our wording of the recommendation that it be converted to a porch or a veranda. And those terms are specifically defined in the bylaw. They're unenclosed, containing no walls with a roof. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Mazan.
Thank you. Through you. I just wanted to add my support for this application. This is an iconic part of Muskoka, the heritage and the nod to it. I drive past these cottages often, and they've done a wonderful job of trying to keep that character. So very much in support. Thank you.
Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you, and through you, ditto to what my colleagues are saying about this wonderful property. I'm wondering, as we talk a bit here about the heritage aspects, if do we encumber this property if we seek some heritage designations? Would that assist here in any capacity? Would it help with the screened-in porch, et cetera? Just asking that question, I guess, of staff.
Well, I think we might. I see Ms. Major shaking her head. There's so many limitations that come with the heritage property. But do you want to say anything, Ms. Major?
No, just exactly what you just said. I just don't think I'd want to encumber the property. I think we have done everything, and I hope to preserve its character, enhance it, and we're trying our best. But I wouldn't want to encumber it with anything on title.
Okay, Mr. Sharp,
just clarify, I believe that the screened porch or the screened room has been constructed fairly recently. So I doubt that it has any heritage value, at least that component. And just to clarify, I think, you know, there is a process, there's a heritage committee that would look at properties with heritage value. Mr. Pink may wish to elaborate on what that process would look like if planning committee's interested in that. Thank you.
But just a sec, Ms. Major, I'm not sensing that we're going to ask these owners to do that. So no, I didn't think so. So, okay, any other comments? Mayor Harding.
Thank you. I guess I'll look to committee's perspective. Personally, you know, the sleeping cabin number 1 has been built. It's not even an addition. We're just recognizing what is there. I'm totally in favor of just leaving the screens up and not worrying about it. We're really talking about a new boathouse that I think is net bettering the property. We're shrinking boathouse width, we're shrinking everything else. So I'll look to my fellow colleagues whether or not that's supported or not. I think Councillor Roberts' comment, removable in the wintertime, shutters, whatever, you know, we can't see this cabin from the water. We can't see anything. You know, let's just leave some history there. That's my perspective. So I'm not sure who could support that or not.
Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you. It is unfortunate that that Donelda is not here, but I will say that in the past we have referred this type of a property to the Heritage Committee. I'm getting the sense that that's not possible right now, but I also don't think that we as a committee, and it's been very clear to me on this particular application that the folks are very happy with what both our staff and their architect have come up with. I'm not sure why we're trying to undo that. They were fine with the way that the application was brought forward today, so I'm just not sure why we're trying to add stuff.
Councillor Jaglowitz, and then I'm just going to ask if anybody has any appetite for Mayor Harding's comment. Councillor Jaglowitz.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is a lovely property and I support the application. I also support staff's recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, do we have anybody who wants to support Mayor Harding's comments? Okay, then I'm going to read the motion. Moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved, the Planning Committee recommends to Township Council the zoning bylaw amendments at BA-11/22 Hunter and Major, roll number 9-15-082 be approved, subject to the following: that the proposed development be made subject to site plan control to retain existing vegetation and implement plantings. That the as-built screen porch forming part of sleeping cabin number 1 be converted to a porch or veranda prior to third reading of the bylaw 2022-052. That the lot area of the subject property be confirmed prior to third reading of bylaw 2022-052, excluding any lands created by filling carried out subsequent to October 24th, 1980, along with confirmation that lot coverage will not exceed 11%. And that minor amendments to bylaw 2022-052 be approved prior to third reading to remove exemptions related to sun deck additions off the north side of the dwelling, to reduce the floor area of sleeping cabin number 1, and to implement any other necessary technical updates, including a revised Schedule 2. Any comments? All in favor? Carry on with your new boathouse. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on now to 1, 2, 3. Apparently it's the Miss Walker show this morning. Miss Walker, please take it away.
Thank you, Chair Bridgman. The next application to be heard is zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 20/22 bylaw 2022-81 in the name of 1331721 Ontario Inc. The subject property is known municipally as 1120 Ferndale Road, Unit 10. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted sketches starting on page 95 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is summarized as follows. The applicant proposes to rezone a portion of the subject land from open space private OS2 to waterfront residential WR5 A single-story garage is intended to be constructed on the rezoned lands. Notice of this public meeting under the Planning Act was circulated 22 days in advance, and 5 submissions have been received to date. Comments have been received from Nick Snyder, the Township's Chief Building Official, Tim Supko, the Township's Public Works Technician, Curtis Savret, Planner for the District of Muskoka, and the Trillium Lakelands District School Board. A letter of support has also been submitted by Paul Barnicki, an area property owner. I would note that a correction to the letter of support was submitted clarifying that Paul Barnicki is the property owner of 1118 Ferndale Road, not 1120 Ferndale Road, Unit 6. I've prepared a detailed planning report for committee's consideration. If committee is considering recommending approval of zoning bylaw amendment ZBA 20/22 bylaw 2022-81, staff recommend the following. That bylaw 2022-81 be amended to restrict the use of the lands to be rezoned to a single-story garage with a ground floor area of 1,140 square feet. I have no further comments, but I'm happy to assist committee with any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Walker. I'm looking at is the agent here? I don't see Mr. Davidson listed here. Sorry? Oh, he's in already. You guys are good. Okay. Okay, Mr. Davidson, where am I? Mr. Davidson?
Good morning.
Oh, good. Oh, would you mind turning your video on?
I'm not sure why it's not on. Oh, there we go.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, Mr. Davidson.
Thank you. And good morning to the planning staff, council members, and Mayor Harding, Chair Bridgman. My name is Robert Davison. I represent the Koning Group in Port Carling. We're located at 3 Armstrong Point Road, Port Carling, P0B1J0. I concur with all of Ms. Walker's findings. Just to describe the project, it's a very modest garage. It's not visible from the lake, has no heating, no plumbing, and it's essentially there to replace an existing temporary garage. That's all I have to say. If you have any questions, I'm here for assistance.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else in support of this? Anyone opposed? Okay, committee, any comments? Councillor Jaglowitz.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, the question is more general than it is about this property. It's a question for staff. What criteria do you use when you change the zoning from protected zoning to a buildable? And I'm just curious how you go about making that determination, whether that's a good move or not.
Mr. Sharp?
Thank you, Chair Bridgman. Thank you, Councillor Jaglowitz, for your question. In this particular instance, the lands to be rezoned are zoned private open space where residential development is not permitted. And I'd say that the lands that are zoned that way are zoned that way in order to do just that, to prevent residential development from occurring. The lot parcel fabric in this particular instance is such that the appearance of 2 tiers of development and compatibility concerns could exist with development within the OS2 zoned area. I think in this particular instance, what is proposed is a single-story garage, and staff are comfortable proceeding with the rezoning with the restrictions that we're putting in place. I think we'd have more concerns if the lands to be rezoned were to be developed with a habitable building like a dwelling or a 2-story garage with a sleeping cabin above, where a higher intensity of use could be invited, which could cause a concern for the adjoining property owner with a dwelling directly in front along the lakeshore. So those are the things that we're thinking about with respect to this application. Hopefully that provides some insight, but I'm happy to provide any more clarification as may be required. Thank you.
Thank you for your answer.
Okay, any other comments, committee? All right, I'm going to read the motion. Moved by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Mayor Harding. Be it resolved, the Planning Committee recommends to Township Council that zoning bylaw amendment ZBA-20/22 1331721 Ontario Inc. Roll number 5-4-094-02 5-5-001-07 be approved, subject to the following. That bylaw 2022-081 be amended to restrict the use of lands to be rezoned to a single-story garage with a ground floor area of 1,140 square feet. Any comments? All in favor? That carries. Thank you. All right. Thank you very much. And our next one is for Evans, and I believe that is Ms. Crowder. Welcome, Ms. Crowder.
Thank you, Chair Bridgman. Good morning, members of committee. The next application to be heard is zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 22/22ML, bylaw 2022-083 in the name of Evans. The subject property is known municipally as 14 Island J15, otherwise known as Elsinore Island. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted zoning sketch on page 125 of the agenda package. The purpose of zoning bylaw 2022-083 is to provide exemptions to permit cumulative dock width to exceed the permitted maximum width. Please note that at the time of writing, a comment recommending an additional decrease in dock width was accidentally left in the analysis section of the submitted staff report. The intention of staff was for this comment to be left out of the report, as staff believe the proposed reduction in dock width is a favorable proposal. As such, staff requests that committee disregard the second last bullet in the analysis section of the report. Notice of this public meeting under the Planning Act was circulated 23 days in advance, and 4 submissions have been received to date. The following comments were received and have been circulated to committee prior to today's meeting. Comments have been received from Nick Snyder, the Township Chief Building Official, and Tim Sopko, the Township Public Works Technician, stating that they have no objection to the application. Comments have been received from the District Municipality of Muskoka, stating that they have no objection to the application. And comments were also received from Trillium Lakelands District School Board, stating no objection to the application. I am happy to read any of the submissions at full at the request of committee. Staff have prepared a detailed planning report for committee's consideration. I have no further comments at this time, but I'm happy to assist committee with any questions.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Crowder. Welcome, Mr. Allen.
Good morning. It's nice to see you all again. I promise this application has no bump outs. So there should be some fairly smooth sailing from here. I do have a presentation, if that could be queued up. My name is Ryan Allen. I am a registered professional planner assisting Michael Evans with his proposed zoning bylaw amendment on a lot on Elsinore Island. Thank you, Ms. Crowder, for your detailed explanation of the application, as well as your support and positive recommendation. As was mentioned, there's only one amendment included with this application, and it is to permit a cumulative dock width of 115 feet. We could move to the next slide once that's ready, please. Next slide, please.
We're working on it here.
Oh, no problem. Very, very good. The property is located at the southeasterly end of Elsinore Island. It is a large lot with multiple frontages and includes a small embayment. Next slide, please. This is a closer view and an air photo of the subject property. It is connected by a footbridge to the adjacent Harry Island, and you can see the existing dock and boathouse locations. There's 2 existing docks proposed to be removed and 1 new singular dock constructed associated with a new compliant boathouse. The lot has a significant amount of bylaw frontage at over 700 feet and over 2/3 of a kilometer of actual frontage. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, the proposal is to remove 2 existing docks, construct a new dock, and to permit a cumulative dock width of 115 feet. Next, please. This is a site plan showing the subject lot. There's an existing dwelling and tennis court. There is an existing dock to be removed, and you can see the location of the proposed new two-story boathouse and new dock. Next slide. This is an enlargement of the site plan. The areas that are highlighted or circled in red, those are the existing dock widths. There's 134.4 feet of existing dock width, and we're proposing to reduce that amount by 19.4 feet to the 115 feet that's proposed. And I would note that the proposed new two-story boathouse fully complies with all requirements of the bylaw. Next slide, please. This is an air photo showing the subject property, as well as the location of the new docks and the existing development. Next slide. This is a view from Harry Island, which is also owned by the applicant, towards the existing boathouse and docks that are proposed to be removed and replaced. Next slide, please. This lot has a significant amount of frontage. The individual frontages, east, west, and north, are more than 400 feet each. Next slide, please. In terms of planning analysis, the existing legal non-complying docks at 134 feet are to be reduced by 19.4 feet to 115, which represents a reduction and improvement. I mentioned the lot has a substantial amount of actual and bylaw frontage. The lot is large with distinct frontages. The dock is located within an embayment, which helps to limit its appearance. The proposed dock width represents 5% of the actual frontage and 16% of the bylaw frontage. You'll be aware that your official plan directs that shoreline structures not occupy more than 25% of the frontage, so well below that requirement. 95% of the shoreline will remain undeveloped. Built form will not dominate the shoreline, in my opinion. The lot, because of its size, large size and frontage, does have the ability to be severed into two lots, potentially three lots. Two lots would allow up to 150 feet of dock width, and the official plan directs that large lots can be considered for additional cumulative dock width based on the resultant frontages. The larger dock sizes and widths are typical on Lake Joseph, and for water access properties, I would note that there is no driveway or parking area. All goods and people arrive by boat. Because this is a dock located over water, no tree removal or site alteration is required. The vast majority of the dock is less than 50 feet in length and located within the boathouse or behind the boathouse, and the new dock is located outside significant fish habitat. Next slide, please. So it would be my professional opinion that the proposed application conforms with both the district and official plans, consistent with the provincial policy statement, and represents good planning. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I don't believe we have anybody here for or against, so I'm going to turn this over to committee. Anybody have any comments? All right, I'm going to read the motion then. Moved by Councillor Zavitz, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved, the Planning Committee recommends to Township Council that zoning bylaw amendment ZBA-22/22 Evans roll number 4-25-024 be approved. Any discussion? All in favor? That is carried. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. And hang on. Get to my next one. It's Miss Crowder again, I believe. Welcome again.
Thank you, Chair Bridgman. The next application to be heard is zoning bylaw amendment ZBA 2722ML, bylaw 2022-099 in the name of Young. The subject property has no assigned civic address. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted zoning sketch on page 168 of the agenda package. The purpose of zoning bylaw 2022-099 is to provide exemptions to permit a dock to exceed the maximum permitted cumulative dock width requirement, to permit dock and boathouse additions to be within the required setback from a lot line abutting a public street, and of permitting a boathouse addition to exceed the maximum single-story boathouse length. Notice of this public meeting under the Planning Act was circulated 21 days in advance, and 5 submissions have been received to date. The following comments were received and have been circulated to committee prior to today's meeting. Comments have been received from Nick Snyder, the Township Chief Building Official, and Tim Sopko, the Township's Public Works Technician, stating that they have no objection to the application. Comments have been received from the Township's Legislative Services Division, stating no objection, but noting that the applicant currently has an existing license agreement for the encroachments of a frame boathouse and dock that are situated on the township's road allowance. Provided these encroachments are not further expanded onto township lands, they have no concerns. Comments were received from the District Municipality of Muskoka stating that they have no objection to the application. And comments were also received from Trillium Lakelands District School Board stating no objection to the application. I'm happy to read any of these submissions in full at the request of committee. Staff have prepared a detailed planning report for committee's consideration. Staff recommend that a decision be deferred pending a fish habitat assessment prepared by a qualified environmental professional. If committee is considering recommending approval of ZBA 2722, bylaw 2022-099, staff recommend the following minor amendment: that the boathouse and dock shown on the submitted site plan be restricted to these envelopes to prevent further additions. I have no further comments at this time, but I'm happy to assist committee with any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Crowder. Welcome, Ms. Ledger.
Unmute. Thank you. Terry Ledger, agent for the applicant, 167 Medora Street, Port Carling, P0B1J0. And good morning, Chair Bridgman and committee. So this is a little bit interesting, and I think the owner got a little bit ahead of himself. I think there is a little bit of confusion with the lease agreement, etc. At any rate, I think you can see by all the little colored blocks what was existing, what was built without a permit, and what we're proposing to add on. So can everyone see the colors on the site plan on the boathouse? So the blue section is actually existing, and that portion of the boathouse, but it was not permitted. I think it's been there probably over 10 years. The hatched area to the right is what the addition will be, and that's for a second slip in the front of the boathouse. The yellow section was the original dock that was permitted, but the sort of lavender dock area was built and exists now without a permit. So we're trying to get this all sorted and legalized. The width is over by a few inches on the docks, and it's built, it's there, and the new boathouse portion hasn't been built yet, so that's just slightly longer to get the slip length in. So that's the 1.4 feet in variance. I'm sure there are questions, so I'm just going to leave it at that, and I'm happy to answer anything. Thank you.
Okay, for reference, that's on page 168 of the package. At the color coding of what's happening and not happening. So I don't believe I see anybody else wanting to speak on this, so I will turn this over to committee. Committee, comments, questions? Councillor Nishikawa.
Sorry, I thought I'd heard staff recommend a deferral, and that's what I'm going for.
Okay, so rather than, well, Councillor Jaglowitz, you can speak, but perhaps if we all agree on a deferral, perhaps we could save the discussion until it came back to us after that study is done. Councillor Jaglowitz?
Chair, if that's what you wish, but my question was going to be, I just wanted some history as to how it came about to have a boathouse on leased land. But if you want to defer it till it comes back, that's fine with me.
No, I think that's a fair question. I mean, you sort of look at this, as Ms. Ledger said, and you said, wow, how did all this happen? So Ms. Ledger, do you have any history on this?
Yes, so this is one of those properties that has the actual cottage property behind a road. So there's a few of them. Mortimer's Point Road has a few, like there's a few around. So what they typically allow is that you can build according to your frontage, sort of out into the road. So you use your lot area the frontage on the water, and it is permitted as you're the back property, almost like a shore road allowance, but it's an actual road allowance. So, but it works sort of the same way. So originally there's a portion, a little hatched area on that site plan that is leased. So he pays a yearly lease to be able to access from township road, public land, basically, so that he can have its dock and boathouse out there. So that original lease is still in effect, and it was done with the sort of green area is the original boathouse, and the yellow area was the original docks. So that was all permitted. That's leased. The leased area is really just the access point. So anything beyond that is really just subject to typical building permit. So I think it's a little off on the length and the width, but I actually didn't have, I've worked with Mr. Young before, but on his garage, I didn't have anything to do with this. So we're just trying to sort of fix it. So things were added on. I think as he thought he had the lease that it was okay, but it generally conforms. It's a little off on the measurements, but that's sort of how it happened.
Okay, Mr. Sharp.
Thank you, Chair Bridgman. I can perhaps provide a little bit more context based on my review of our file relating to the property in question. A building permit was issued in 1983 for an original dock and boathouse, and there was a license agreement entered into with a former owner in August of 1983. The permit was issued in 1983, and final inspection was undertaken in December of 1983, and the license agreement is carried forward. There is an existing license agreement in effect. So I just wanted to provide that context that the original dock and boathouse was permitted by way of a building permit and a license agreement. And my only other comment was just in regard to the fish habitat assessment. Given that we are recommending that it be deferred for that, planning committee may wish to, consider what their ultimate recommendation is going to be if that fish habitat assessment comes back in a favorable way. Just because I wouldn't want to send Ms. Ledger and the applicant away to spend that money without, having some sense of planning committee's support for the application. Thank you.
Good point, Mr. Sharp. Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you to Mr. Bryce. So the last time the township was involved with any building on this property was 1993. There was no involvement until this date, i.e. built without benefit of a building permit.
Mr. Sharp, I think it was 83, was it not?
Yes, it was 1983 when the original building permit was issued. And I believe the latest license agreement is quite recent. Off the top of my head, I believe it might have been 2008, and it hasn't expired yet. But I understand that the building, the expansions have occurred without a building permit, which is how this all came to be.
Good, good, Councillor Roberts. So I have a question too, and then I will ask if there's general support if the study comes back positively. I mean, I guess that all of the risk, it looks to me, is on Mr. Young, because if we at some point in the future don't renew this lease, there is no access to what has been built here, or it becomes the township's. I'm a little unclear on that part of it. So who can help me? Would that be our clerk from a legal standpoint, Mr. Sharp? Or no one? So I guess the question, Mr. Sharp, is this all a risk for this owner in case this lease disappears in the future? I just curious.
I'll defer this question to Ms. Tarasuk. I see she has her screen on, and I think she's better equipped to deal with the answer. Thank you.
Okay, Madam Clerk.
So lease agreements aren't transferable to new owners. So new owners would have to enter into a lease agreement at their own risk that something changes.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jaglowitz.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Since we're now trying to decide whether we would support it if there's a favorable study, I'm trying to understand the portion of the land that's leased. So I'm looking at that, and it appears to point to it's very difficult. Which is the actual leased portion of the land? Is that very, very small square, just that's not as wide as the boathouse itself? Or could someone just help me? When we talk about that, Mortimer's Point and other places like that, I thought those places, they actually owned the land at the water and the road went through the middle. This one, it appears there's no owned land there at the water's edge. So maybe just help me. What is the leased portion?
Ms. Ledger, I think you would like to answer that.
Sure. And yes, you're correct. Typically there is a little bit of owned land on the other side of the road, but this one happens to go, the road goes right to the edge, to the water's edge. So that's why there's a leased portion. It's that access. So if you look at the site plan at the road, so it almost looks like it's in the road. There's an outlined area with some survey marker corners, and it's hatched in a square pattern in light gray. That's the leased portion. So it's actually wider than the boathouse that enters onto it. Once you get beyond that portion, and it's got a weird end because that's the road allowance portion, then the lake bed, of course, becomes part of the province. So it's like any other boathouse in the water. The land is owned by the province. So who allow the property owner adjacent to that shoreline to build boathouses, which is what we do, right? So then it becomes sort of typical.
Okay, so supplementary then there's a road in between that leased land and the actual property. So what attaches that leased land to that property? I know the lease will be in the name of an individual, but is it attached to that property? Or in effect, could it be sold separately? I just don't understand how.
Well, the leased land is owned by the township, so it's up to the township to decide.
I see.
The leased land belongs, and because it's adjacent to this property, despite the road there, that's why they allowed it.
I see. So it really is not attached to the property at all. It's just the township permits it because it's a policy that if it's in front of a property, that would be, they certainly wouldn't do it if it wasn't in front of a property. Okay,
correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
Okay.
Okay, so can I get a feel from committee if the study comes back in a positive manner? Do we have any issues with this? I don't. So can I get a thumbs up if it would be fine? It would go through? Okay, I'm that's about 3. Council
5 maybe.
Can we do that again? Because I agree, you don't spend all this money otherwise. Okay, it looks very positive. And let's see what Councillor Roberts has to say, because he hasn't said it.
Thank you for allowing me to speak twice on this, Madam Chair. Yes, I support the deferral but I want to talk to and gain more information on this before providing any approval, because I've got some questions. So I'll just leave it till the next time it comes about. Thank you.
So, Ms. Ledger, I think as long as that report comes back in a positive manner, this committee is supportive of this application. Oh, Councillor Mazan.
Thank you, through you. I just wanted to note I did not put up my hand only because I'm a bit like Councillor Roberts. I felt like there's some questions that I would still like to understand the history of this property and understand when somebody's gone ahead and built without permits in this manner. That always begs a question. So that is why I didn't put my hand up, but I would certainly support the deferral and the fish habitat, but not that there's a guarantee when it comes back. Thank you.
Okay, I'll let Mr. Sharp speak before I go to you, Councillor Jaglowitz.
Thank you, Chair Bridgman. I'm getting the sense that maybe there's a request from Councillors Roberts and Mazan for some additional information from staff with respect to the history. I'm just wanting to make sure that when we do bring this back, that we're providing Planning Committee with the information that you feel is required. So if there was something specific, we're happy to look into it and return. But if it's just general questions that can be continued at the time that we return with this matter, we're happy to do that as well.
Okay, I'm going to let Councillor Jaglowitz speak, and then you can give us your list, Councillor Roberts. Councillor Jaglowitz.
Thank you. I wasn't going to speak. I just wanted to also indicate my hand wasn't up. I haven't made a decision on it. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Roberts, some specific stuff for Mr. Sharp.
Specific stuff. Okay, I want to talk to the buildings to make sure the structure that was built without benefit of permit is sound and follows all building codes. I want to talk to planning, a little more detail on I guess more planning than my peers on we have appears to be a significant build that was done without benefit of building permit. The applicant is coming forth asking for forgiveness, I guess is the best way to say it. I just want to understand, should we be doing that? We just saying, oh, that's okay, because we do, in my opinion, set a precedence, and I just want to think about it a little bit for the next month.
Okay, but that's a political decision, so you're not going to get planning to talk about forgiveness or non-forgiveness, just in terms of that.
No, it won't, but I'll be asking specific questions so I can form my opinion. All right, I'm not asking for their.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, Ms. Ledger, and then I think we're going to defer this. So one last comment.
I just wanted to sort of let you know what happens. If it were approved, then the portions that were built without a permit would require permitting. So we would have to go back, apply for building permit for that portion, even though it's already built. You have to pay double fees on everything because you built without a permit. So all these things, and then they would come and inspect, and so it goes back to the beginning, but you get basically fined by having to pay double fees, as we paid a double fee for this application as well. So that's kind of the penalty, as it were, for going ahead without going through the proper channels. So I just wanted to clarify that, but happy to defer, and we'll go back and get the study done. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Harding.
Thank you, and appreciate Ms. Ledger's comments that people do build without permits regularly. Unfortunately, they do, but in this case, we will be able to rectify everything. We'll be able to make sure it's built appropriately. Our legislation as to what the fines appropriate will be done there. I guess I look at it, do we really want to lease this land or not? For 20 plus years, these guys have had a boathouse there. Nobody else will benefit from this. There are several other places that this occurs across the township. I'm not sure, I'll be honest, that if we were to say remove this boathouse, that we're going to win at this particular point. So I'm okay to go through the studies at this particular point and then officially enter into appropriate lease agreements and move forward. But let's figure out the fish first of all. That would be our one leg to potentially remove this boathouse. Thanks.
So, Councillor Jaglowitz.
Yes, we were asking whether, thank you, Chair, what else planning could provide. Yes, we talked about the building, and that's the proper procedure, but we didn't talk about the lease. So I'd like to see the original lease and what the conditions were on that lease. Was it granted to a certain size boathouse, and then that has been exceeded, or just to understand whether the lease should permitted this. That's all. So that's my further question for when it comes back. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Sharp, you have note of that, I assume. Okay, all right. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you. Looking at page 168, the leased land, should that leased land maybe not be should that be increased because the boathouse is over, even though it's on the province's land, just to make sure it's legal? That's the only question I have. Thank you.
Okay, we'll leave that with staff too when we come back. So, all right, Ms. Ledger, I think you can go ahead with your study, and we'll see you back here at whatever time.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so it's 22:11, so I think we'll take a 10-minute break before we start into the next section of our agenda. So we'll see you back here at 10:50. Okay, could we get everybody back, please? So we're good. We're good to go. All right, we're good. We're streaming again. We're good. Okay, terrific. All right, so we're back in session now. Next on our agenda is a report from Director Pink in terms of our official plan amendment for Minette. So if you would take it away, Director Pink.
No problem. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Yes, I am pleased to report. I'm sure committee members recall OPA 56 for Minette was adopted by the township in December of last year. I'm pleased to report District Council did approve OPA 56 at their meeting on July 18th. They also adopted OPA 49 to the Muskoka official plan. There were some relatively minor modifications made. Committee will recall that I did bring those up at a previous planning committee meeting, and direction was received that they did not have to return for further deliberation. So those the OPA was approved as modified. Unfortunately, I do have to report that appeals were received. The last day for appeal was yesterday, and I can report that appeals were received to both the Township OPA and District of Muskoka OPA 49. I am available to answer any questions, but I did want to advise committee that the Minette OPA was approved by the District of Muskoka. Thank you.
Mr. Pink, would you mind just explaining, because I suspect we're going to have questions on who's appealing and what's being appealed, et cetera. Could you just explain what you just explained to me?
Yes, thank you. In the past, we have been advised by the tribunal that we should not release information surrounding the appeal until the appeal package has been received by the tribunal and acknowledged by them. I do believe at that point it certainly is public information, but I do believe I can report that 2 appeals were received to both by the same parties in each case.
Thank you. Well, I'd ask if there are any questions, but we really can't discuss anything. So I think that's informational at this point. Thank you, Director Pink. And I believe that we're on to Mr. Sharp with the missed opportunities. And I believe Mr. Szczerbak is here too. Mr. Sharp, welcome back.
Thank you, Chair Bridgman. An application has been received by the District Municipality of Muskoka to extend the time required to fulfill conditions of draft approval of condominium description number C 2016-5 in the name of Missed Opportunities Incorporated. The subject land is known municipally as 1869 Muskoka Road 118 West, and the conditionally approved condominium description consists of 64 resort units and related exclusive use elements, a boathouse, and private communal potable water and sanitary sewage treatment facilities to be completed in three phases. Staff understand that the approval of an initial phase required longer than expected due in part to the COVID-19 pandemic. Hence, the request to extend the time required to fulfill conditions for the remaining phases has been submitted. District staff have requested comments from the township, and I recommended that the district be advised that the township has no objections. I have no further comments at this time and would be happy to assist committee with any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sharp. And Mr. Szczerbak is, here he is. Welcome, Stefan.
Good morning, Madam Chair. I'm just here if there's any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Then Councillor Jaglowitz.
Actually, Chair, I just wanted the clerk to record that I left the meeting while Minette was being discussed. That's all. I turned my camera off. Okay. Because I declared a conflict at the beginning of the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, so the clerk needs the administrative end done on that. There's an online form now to fill in for that.
Yes, but I declared it at the beginning of the meeting, but I just wanted to record. I left the meeting and turned my camera off during that discussion. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. All right, any questions, committee, on this? If not, I am going to read the motion. Moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor Edwards. Be it resolved, the Planning Committee recommends to Council that the District of Muskoka be advised that the Township of Muskoka Lakes has no objection to the extension of draft approved condominium description number C 2016-5. Any comments? All in favor? Madam Clerk? Okay, carried. Thank you. All right, and so we are now down to heritage and attainable housing. The minutes from the April 29th meeting, we are just going to accept those unless I have any comments on those. All right, those can go into the record. And now we have Mr. Moore up with our interpretive signage for the Moon River Rock. Mr. Moore or Director Pink? Okay, Director Pink, take it away.
Thank you. I was kind and allowed Mr. Moore to have a day off today, so I will fill in for him. You will see in the heritage minutes that were just reviewed that signage or a plaque on the rock at the Moon River Falls was considered by the Heritage Committee. They wish to add some signage, and the language to be used was debated, and you'll see in the minutes that wording was suggested by the committee for said signage, and staff's recommending to you that that wording be approved. However, on a broader scale, we do note that the signage around Port Carling and Bala is not consistent, to say the least. It's a bit of hodgepodge of designs, locations, state of repair, etc. And we are suggesting that a more comprehensive, consistent review be undertaken as part of the CIP next year, so that downtown interpretive signage be consistent in both communities. And that as part of that, the recommended language on the sign on the Moon River Rock be approved, and we can include it as part of that process. So hopefully for next year, I'm available to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Comments, questions, committee? Right, I'm going to read the motion that, Councillor Edwards.
Just for clarification, David, I know the sign will have a QR code on it, and there was some people wanted more on the sign. Are they satisfied now that the QR code's on? It brings everything on it.
Okay.
I think you're still on.
Oh, I still? No, I think I'm good.
You're good. Okay. Thank you. Through you. I can't certainly speak for Ms. Daglish, but I know it did come up at the most recent Heritage and Attainable Housing Committee, and she did raise some questions about the reduction. And I believe once we explain the intent of the QR code and the Heritage Committee's discussion, that probably signage is a little more effective with more concise information. So you seem generally in agreement with that.
Okay, all right. Moved by Mayor Harding, seconded by Councillor Kelly. Be it resolved, the Planning Committee recommends to Township Council that the recommended text from the Heritage and Attainable Housing Advisory Committee identified in Appendix 2 of Staff Report CED-2022-28 for signage at the Moon River Rock be approved, and the downtown interpretive signage, including the Moon River Rock location, be included as a 2023 Community Improvement Plan Public Realm Initiative. Any comments? All in favor? Okay, carried. Thank you. All right. And now we are moving on to development services, and this was our on-site sewage. And Mr. Mulholland, I see you're here, so please welcome. And if you want to give us a overview, and then we'll take it from there.
Sounds good. Thank you, Chair Bridgman. Similarly, we've allowed Nick Snyder to take a day off, so I'll be filling in for him today. It's a pretty straightforward one. I think we're just going to give you a quick update on where we're at with the program. So in March of 2022, a report was provided to committee outlining proposed updates to the septic maintenance inspection program, as well as reviewing the results of a public survey that we conducted prior to that. So after discussion, council deferred a decision on this program so that we could prepare a database of the existing septic systems throughout the township. So in May of 2022, the contract position was filled and work on the database began. As of the end of July, we have now completed a review of 3 of the 9 wards in the township, specifically Cardwell, Watt, and Windermere. You can look at the report that we provided. That provides a little bit more detail on what we found so far. Work, obviously, on the database continues to this date. So as the incumbent commenced work approximately halfway through the calendar year of 2022, and based on the work completed to date, the remaining time in 2022 will likely not be sufficient to complete the database work. As such, staff recommends a corresponding extension of the contract position into the first 5 months of 2023. We also note that as we are transitioning into operating this new program, depending on the direction provided by committee, that this contract position may also transition into an administrative role for the program as a whole. As such, committee could direct staff to include funding for the June to December 2023 period in the draft 2023 operating budget to create a full-time position that would allow us to administer this new or revised program. At this time, I'd just like to note that completing the database and the remaining 6 wards will be of considerable assistance to both staff and to committee when formulating the new septic reinspection program. It'll allow us to more deeply understand the financial and administrative implications, as well as the public and private resources that we'll need in place in order to support it. As an alternative, as a portion of the database is now complete, committee may also direct staff to consider a staged rollout of this program, in which case staff would be happy to prepare a report, return to committee for deliberation on what form that staged rollout might take. So I'll wrap it up for there, keep it brief. If committee has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. So I am looking at the stats, which were very interesting, and I'm going to suggest the committee would probably like to get moving on this because we have a number of high-risk areas. So I'm just going to ask committee, could we direct Mr. Mulholland to bring back a report to us to get this started? Have I got sort of agreement on that? Okay, okay, all right. Councillor Nishikawa.
Along with, I guess, that staff report, I would want to, I want to find out how to tap into the building department's funds, quite honestly. I want to see who's going to pay for this, and because we don't, yeah, that's the biggest thing. I wanted. They just have a big pot there, and I think that some of this should be taken out of that pot. If especially, I mean, certainly if a staff member is being considered hired, then that would be considered in that area. But all of the other, the consultant fees and things like that, I'd like to find a way, if it's not already, to ensure that they come out of the building department funds. Thank you.
Okay, so now I'm going to ask Director Pink to put on his accounting hat and answer that question.
Thank you. I would note that the building department reserve is being utilized for this program. So just to make that clear, after the amalgamation of the department, we determined that those building reserve funds can be utilized for the sewage reinspection program, and there was some considerable savings in the last budget as a result. And the future administration of this program will continue that course. I did just want to back up 1 second, just so that I'm abundantly clear. I believe, was that direction just received in order to bring back a report to sort of come back with the policy and the revised program? prior to completion of the full database? I'm just sorry, I apologize if I missed the exact question, but I saw the committee give the thumbs up to bring back the report. I just want to be very clear on what exactly that is.
So I believe, as Mr. Mulholland asked us, do we want to start to implement the process of starting to check all of these? I thought that was the report we were bringing back, how we basically start to kick off the program. Am I correct, Mr. Mulholland, on that?
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Yes, that was the intention. We would formulate a report that both spoke to the implementation of the program, but also spoke to the phased rollout, being that we truly only have good data on 3 of the wards at the moment. It would likely make sense that we would focus on those wards as our starting place for this, and would consider what that phased rollout would look like from there.
Okay, thank you. And just before, just as a little bit maybe administrative here, one of the requests was that we look at funding for this position in the 2023 budget, which would come out of reserves, from what I'm understanding. I don't have anything in front of me that says that. So if committee is keen on that, I guess we'll figure that part out. I just wanted to let the staff know. Okay, Councillor Roberts.
Thank you. Yeah, just I guess everyone can hear me. Through you, Madam Chair, to Director Pink and Mr. Mulholland, if he wants to chime in on this. Rather than because I need to know a lot more information. I know in the industry, if we're carving off something like this, and we're trying to get lessons learned and type of stuff, then it should be a pilot, not a rollout, and the deliverables for lessons learned, so that we could form the rollout. Are you okay with that? And
so, Councillor Roberts, I think we've got all of that. You are cutting in and out in terms of your internet. Can you hear me? Wave if you can hear me.
Yes. Okay. Yes, I can hear you. Can you see me?
Yeah, no, I can see you and we can hear you, but I think what you're basically saying is, could we incorporate it in that report almost like a pilot project? And then we can evaluate those first things that are done and learn the lessons from them. I believe that's what I heard from you.
That's exactly what you heard.
I see Mr. Mulholland going yes. So
thank you.
Oh, Director Pink.
Thank you, Chair. Keep in mind, just to be very clear, what you have before you today is simply an update on the database, because that was committee's request of, I believe, 6 months ago, to come back in 6 months with an update, and we're happy to report we filled the position and work is underway. And really the only request in front of you currently is, seeing as that position was not filled until approximately midway through the year, to utilize those unspent funds at the beginning of next year. A lot of the discussion now is on the policy itself and the program, and that we can come back next month. If that's our, I'm not going to commit to next month, we'll do our best to come back within the next month or two, bring back the policy, and we can review all these details, including a pilot project. We can certainly put our mind to it, but initially, off the top of my head, I just want to caution that could be quite a challenge on a project of this size. It's quite a significant undertaking, revamp of the whole township, a lot of properties, and a lengthy time commitment to implement this type of project. So to do it in a pilot form may pose some challenges, but we'll certainly put our mind to that and report further on the policy aspect of this project when we return. Really, what's before you is an update on the database. So I hope that helps.
Seems to me if we roll something out, we're going to evaluate it as we're rolling it out and make changes anyway, which to me is okay. So Councillor Roberts, but I think to Director Pink's point, we're just approving this at this point, and those kinds of concerns will be addressed when the report comes back. So a
I'll take
follow-up?
it offline. Yes, thank you. A follow-up. I will take it offline and discuss with Director Pink and Mr. Hahn what I think, how they should proceed, given based on years of experience of doing this, such a thing. Thank you.
Okay, sounds good. Mayor Harding.
Thank you, and thank you, Alex, and for staff for compiling this. What this 3 of 9 wards has stated is that we have high risk issues between 25 and 40%. The faster we can implement this program, the better off we're going to be. I don't call this a pilot program. I call this a program that we've already approved. The starting place was to get some of the ground data as we move forward. And yes, as Chair Bridgman said, we're going to continually evolve and learn as this program rolls out. But with up to 40% of our properties at high risk, we need to start this sooner than later. And you know, if we have 5 properties that we can start to address this on, then let's start to address this on 5 properties versus waiting till we have data on 18,000 properties. We have enough properties today based on 3 wards complete to be able to start this program. And I look forward to the program coming back with more detailed reports as soon as our Development Services Department can bring it back to council to say, start.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think we'll rename pilot project. It's not quite where we're going with this. Councillor Jaglowitz.
Yes, I'd like to lend my support to this project going forward. And given that it's under the understanding it'll be in the building department's budget, and since there's sufficient funds there, I think the program should be rolled out as quickly as it can to address the issues. So I don't think it has to wait for a budget cycle because those funds are there. And if a report can come back laying out a program and the funds required, I think we should be able to deal with it ahead of the budget cycle. Thank you.
Councillor Edwards.
Thank you very much. I'm in support of this. I just wish we would change the name from 9 wards, and that because we have now 3 wards in that, and use the old township name so that if anybody is looking at it, they don't get confused. But other than that, it's a great report. I know where Cardwell and Watt is and Windermere and all that, but some other people may not. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I'm going to read this and well, oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Mazan. Please go ahead.
I think I actually put my hand down by accident at this time. That's the opposite issue. I just wanted to lend my general support to this. I found even the preliminary information, Alex, that you provided has been really illuminating, right? And to know that we have this access to this level of detail, I think in the long term is just foundational information to make really good and thoughtful decisions moving forward. So I'll support the direction that we've somewhat agreed on here and the recommendations in today's staff report. Thank you.
Okay, okay, I'm going to read this motion. Moved by Councillor Mazan, seconded by Councillor Kelly. Be it resolved, the Planning Committee recommends to Township Council that staff be authorized to utilize the 2022 budget savings from the sewage database contract position to extend the contract spelling into the first 5 months of 2023. And that pursuant to S.275 of the Municipal Act SO 2001 regarding registered acts after nomination day, lame duck, in the event of council being restricted from ratifying the extension of the contract, the extension be subject to the delegated authority provided to the CAO by bylaw 2020-014. Any comments? All in favor? That carries. So I'm going to go back to my question about looking at extending this through 2023 at this point. Mr. Mulholland suggested we might want to look at that. Director Pink?
Thank you. I was looking at that right before. I guess presumably we could have included that in the resolution, but seeing as we have direction to return with the program, a report on the program and the policy, we could consider all administrative and financial implications through that time and get direction as to inclusions in the budget. So we'll do our best to aim to return before the for this term of council. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, we are now on to Mr. Kennedy. Welcome, Mr. Kennedy, with your biannual report.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, committee. Nothing really to elaborate on this report. I am here for any questions if anybody does have them. As you can see, we are quite busy, a little bit busier than last year as well as far as files go. But again, I'm here for any questions. Thank you.
Okay, committee, any questions on this report? Well, it would appear it's pretty comprehensive, Mr. Kennedy, because we don't have any questions. So thank you very much. And again, good information to have. All right. So we're going to go now to our unfinished business. And I believe, Mr. Sharp, you can bring that to us and just give us the overall on it, if you wouldn't mind.
Thank you, Chair Bridgman. As you know, zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA-36/21 bylaw 2021-116 is a municipal initiated amendment to the township's comprehensive zoning bylaw and has been ongoing since 2020. As detailed in my report, Planning Committee has reached consensus on a number of changes which are largely supported by the community, and I've recommended that these changes be brought forward to Council for approval at this time. Approving bylaw 2021-116 in part will bring these changes into effect and will add clarity to a number of pertinent zoning provisions, both for staff and the community at large. Changes related to overwidth shoreline structures and accessory buildings on waterfront residentially zoned properties, along with added considerations related to the first story use of boathouses and second story boathouse size can be addressed as time and resources permit, likely by the next term of council. If committee proceeds as I have recommended, bylaw 2021-116 will be updated as necessary and brought forward to council for consideration. All those who requested to be notified have been notified of this meeting. 2 submissions have been filed in regard to my recommendation. The first is by Ali Brown of Our Muskoka, confirming that Our Muskoka supports approval of bylaw 2021-116 in part, as I have recommended. The second submission is by Susan Eplett of the Muskoka Lakes Association, confirming that the MLA supports approval of the bylaw in part, as I have recommended. Both submissions have been copied to committee. I have no further comments at this time, and I'd be happy to assist committee with any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sharp. Welcome, Ms. Brown. I assume you're here in place of Mr. Sifft.
Yes, I am. Good morning, everyone. I'm here on behalf of our Muskoka Stakeholders Association, but Bryce summarized our letter for us, so I won't waste any other time. We support, in part, the approval of this going through. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so any comments at all, committee? We've had lots and lots of discussions about this. Mayor Harding?
Thank you. When we met last on this particular, when we talked about shoreline structures exceeding cumulative width and being reduced to 50%, I know there was lots of confusion. I remember I did up a diagram. I think Chair Bridgman, you did up a diagram. And it's funny, though, it's included in here still at 50%. I didn't think we landed on this. And my original thought was some of these changes, for example, exterior extensions to buildings and undersized lots, that was all unanimous. There was a number of the items that certainly we as a committee had unanimity on. But those shoreline structures, I don't believe we did, nor I don't believe we had unanimity on plumbing, specifically that I could allow plumbing in a garage. And again, this bylaw, if it's passed, says you can't put plumbing in a garage. So I'm concerned that some of these we did not have unanimity on. And I thought we were going to continue to have some additional debate on that. So those are a couple of key ones to me in particular that I'm not prepared to vote on in this particular bylaw. Some yes, but not all.
Okay, Mr. Sharp.
Thank you, Chair Bridgman. And maybe just to clarify my recommendation, we're recommending that changes A, B, C, E amended and G and H. Sorry, I realize that's quite a lot to take in, but that those changes be approved. So those are the changes where, consensus has been reached. Those are the changes that are largely supported by the community. And we're not recommending that the changes with respect to overwidth shoreline structures or accessory buildings in the waterfront, including plumbing, be approved. We're just at this point, we're looking to get direction from Planning Committee on this recommendation. And if Planning Committee is so inclined to proceed with the recommendation, then I would amend the bylaw before bringing it to council to reflect the recommendation that's in front of you today. And those other changes would be removed from the bylaw, and they would be continued to be studied. They wouldn't be lost in translation. They'd be continued to be studied and will return as I said, time and resources permit. Thank you.
Does that help you, Mayor Harding?
Sorry, again, I guess I need to confirm, I read the recommendation be approved in part, specifically changes to A, B, C, D, E amended, G and H as outlined in Appendix I. I'm not sure which Appendix I is. I guess that's the table, but there's references there that are now included in the bylaw. So it just seems to me that we were approving the bylaw as it stands there. And I'm just concerned the Appendix I still talks about sections E, F, D, like all of the appropriate ones that are in controversy. So if we can just be very specific about
what we're doing.
That would be
Mayor
good.
Harding, we don't have D in my motion. There is no D in my motion. And there's no F in my motion, which are the two that you had raised. The only thing I can think of is it says as outlined in Appendix 1 or I. I would assume that only applies to those ones that are named.
Okay, so again, that's fine. I just, in reading it, and I said Appendix I wanted to make sure was not encountered. So
I think those are still out they're still out for debate.
Okay.
A, B, C, E amended, G and H. That's all that we're looking at today. Okay, good.
Then I'm good.
Mr. Sharp.
Thanks. It sounds like we've clarified that point, but I would just note the change E. It's the change that deals with accessory building height, which again was unanimous amongst committee to increase that to 25 feet. So that's why it's included, and that was mentioned in the body of the report, but maybe not reflected in that table. So I do apologize for that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jaglowitz.
Thank you, Chair. I like the mayor and I'm a bit confused and would like some more clarity. So, Mr. Sharp, you're referring to Appendix I and using A to H, but in fact, the bylaw has sections 1 through 11. Is it possible for you to, without reading them, just go through the bylaw sections, say which ones are you going to implement and which ones are you not, and which ones are you changing? Is that possible or not? Because, for example, the bylaw doesn't have an A or a B or a C.
You mean in reference to the chart on 260? Let's start with the chart on 260.
No, the chart. It's the bylaw. Your resolution, Madam Chair, I believe, refers to A, B, but the bylaw itself doesn't have an A and a B. It has sections 1 through 11. So,
okay,
so
Mr.
what is
Sharp?
it that you're asking us to vote on?
Mr. Sharp, I think Section A refers to the bylaw and development on undersized lots. Is that not? It's a direct relationship.
To try and help clarify. So the table that we're referring to in Appendix I is on page 260 of your agenda package, and the actual physical bylaw, the draft bylaw, starts on page 261. So there's the first section of the bylaw that deals with the exterior extension of buildings and structures on undersized lots. And that's change A, development on undersized lots. Change B is the exterior extension within required yards. And that is again, change B. Change
But what
C,
number is that on the bylaw? 2?
yes, section 2.
So you're
Yep.
implementing section 2. Okay.
Yep. And then change C is section 3 of the bylaw dealing with second story additions to buildings and structures on lots where lot coverage is exceeded.
You're implementing that. Okay.
Yep. Section 4, which is the shoreline structures exceeding maximum cumulative width. That's section or change D as it's indicated in table 1 in the appendix I. That's not being moved forward. It's not recommended we move forward at this time with that change.
So 4 is not going forward. Okay.
Yeah. Section 5. Section 5 is change E, and that will be amended.
Amended to what?
Planning committee was to amend that. So that would apply to accessory buildings with storage, 2-story accessory buildings with storage above. And then.
So 5 is being implemented in a revised fashion.
Yep. And
what about
F,
6? Okay.
Section, change F won't be implemented. And that's the sections dealing, that's section 7.
And 8.
Section 8. And then the remaining sections, section 9, I guess, won't be implemented either. Or sorry,
Section
no,
9?
Sorry about that. No, my confusion. Section 9 will be implemented.
Section
10 will be implemented, and section 11 will be implemented. So those are the sections that deal with.
You skipped 6. What's happening to 6?
That won't be implemented.
Okay, so then my only last question is 5. So the only thing that's changing is 5. Do you have a wording for 5? Or is it just going to be as we get?
Well, like I said, I'll need to update the bylaw. So that will be brought forward to council.
Okay.
Perhaps in September, and council would have an opportunity at that time to review the specific wording of the bylaw.
Okay, so bringing forward as you disclose now with the exception, everything will come as you disclose except 5 will have a change. Thank you very much.
Mayor Harding.
Thank you. Just clarification, point 6, maybe we're carrying it out somewhere else. I thought we were increasing the height of the accessory structures to 25 feet. So 6 would actually be included, but I think Mr. Sharp, you said 6 would be removed.
Yeah, we did agree on that, Mr. Sharp.
Yeah, I believe I misspoke. I apologize about that. Section 5 is really a technical amendment. It's just a change to a footnote in a table. And section 6 is really change E that will be implemented as amended, and as was the consensus that was reached by planning committee. And like I said, if it gives planning committee any comfort at all, if you proceed as recommended, we'll be bringing forward a bylaw that would be subject to your review and further discussion at council.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm not seeing any more comments or questions. I'm going to read the motion. Moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor Jaglowitz. Be it resolved that Planning Committee recommends to Township Council that zoning bylaw amendment ZBA-36/21 Township of Muskoka Lakes be approved in part, specifically changes A, B, C, E amended, G and H as outlined in Appendix 1. Any comments? All in favor? That's unanimous, Madam Clerk. Okay, thank you. All right. So any new business from anyone this morning? No? All right. Then we've got our OLT status update. Any questions to Mr. Pink on any of that? Then I believe we are done. And I would like to note that we technically finished at 11:10 had we not had to wait for the other meeting, because we don't get to say that very often. So, all right. Moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor Jaglowitz. Be it resolved that Planning Committee recommends, well, I just read that one. Okay. Be it resolved, moved by Councillor Zavitz, seconded by Councillor Mazan. Be it resolved that the Planning Committee meeting adjourn at 11:33 a.m. and the next regular Planning Committee meeting will be held on Thursday, September 15th, 2022 at 9 a.m. electronically from the Council Chambers Municipal Offices in Port Carling, Ontario. A special Planning Committee meeting will be held on Friday, August 12th, 2022 at 9:30 a.m. electronically and in person from the Council Chambers Municipal Offices in Port Carling, Ontario for the statutory public meeting for the official plan review. Note it is 9:30, not 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. All right, all in favor? Carried. Thank you, everyone. And we will see you back here at 9:30 tomorrow morning. Enjoy this beautiful, beautiful day.